Hi everyone! Welcome back to another episode of Starting Out, a podcast where we share our stories of starting out in this great big world. We talk about our highlights, trials and tribulations, and lessons we've learned along the way. So as you are starting your journey, we hope you can learn from us. So Cor, what's the topic for today?
The topic for today is how we started from an unproductive and slacking student to becoming a more well-balanced student, especially in university. So we'll be talking a lot about our experiences in university, or also known as college in the States, and we're super excited.
I would like to start maybe at the very beginning, even before university or college, like basically in high school. How did that transition affect your productivity?
I think going back to high school, I wasn't really a productive person. I wasn't a productive student because I focused a lot on sports and I neglected a lot of my studies. And it wasn't up until grade 12 actually that I started to get my shit together. And I actually started to really think about my future, really think, okay, I need to do a better job in balancing both doing extracurriculars, playing on sports clubs, as well as my competitive sports clubs for volleyball and even school itself. So I guess long story short, in grade 12, I definitely got my shit together and I was definitely a lot more productive and I definitely did a much better job in balancing all different aspects of my life. How about yourself?
How about myself? I think the transition from high school to university was a very interesting one. I thought my life was very scheduled. There was a time everything was like set for me because it sort of is, right? You go to school from 9 till 3, let's just say, and you had a very strict curriculum of like you have to be very productive from those hours, and then you know what the expectations of going home and doing whatever you need to do to make sure you have all your schoolwork done. There was not much else than rather than just doing school or extracurriculars to help with school. So I think that was a very interesting thing, is because when we got into university, it was a bit more of a free-for-all of like, now nobody is on your schedule. The chances of
Yeah.
everybody having that
Yeah.
same class is like impossible because there's so many different streams and all that. So like it starts becoming a very interesting thing of like how people manage their time.
Yeah. And because everyone isn't on the same schedule, and it's like, what are you going to university for, right? And it's almost like the 3 S-triad. Either you pick two of the three, which are either school, sleep, or social. And it's almost like a myth upon university or college students where it's like, you don't get all three. You don't get to excel in school, sleep 8 to 9 hours a day, and have an amazing social life. So what was like your two of the 3 S-triads?
Oh yeah, definitely it was sleep and social first. Unfortunately. And then as I got a little bit better with time management, I could actually say I balanced the three better. But I feel like I had to lean into school and sleep to get me
Yeah.
to a better balance of the three.
Yeah, that's actually so true. I would say in first and second year, I definitely prioritized sleep and social, and it wasn't until my third and finally really my fourth year where I learned it's like I can kind of do all three, but it's more so like I have to lean into one or two more so than the other one. If I can get my studies done and if I can, sleep properly, then I have time to do the social stuff. Then I have time to go out on the weekends. I didn't learn that until the later years in university and college, where it was almost like it felt a little too late.
I feel like throughout life, like you will always be balancing the three and then maybe having a little bit of forgiveness of yourself if you need to like lean into one thing so that you can enjoy another thing later. Doing one thing forever is not sustainable. Doing two things forever is not sustainable. You do need some
Yeah.
level of the three mixed in. I think what was hard about this was even though you pick your two, it never lined up perfectly to someone else's two. Maybe someone actually needs to
Yeah.
lean in school that weekend a little bit more. I do say that faculties that try to balance the three to make sure that their faculty is kind of leaning in on certain one of the S's makes it a little bit easier to like socialize and stuff and like get to know people a little bit more. Because if everybody's like always a little bit everywhere, you can definitely see it wears away the community aspect of like the faculty. Okay, so knowing that there's like a bit of a always a bit of a dilemma, where do you think it actually made you actually unproductive in terms of like the grand scheme of things? Like what little things caused you to be unproductive in those early years?
I think specifically for me, one of the reasons why I wasn't as productive in my first year compared to my fourth year was definitely just being in a new environment. First of all, being away from my parents, being in a new city, and just feeling really homesick. And so because of that, it's like I went home almost every weekend, I'd say, in my first semester. Just because I miss my parents so much and I miss like feeling familiar with my environment. I spent Friday to Sunday like commuting and all of that. So I didn't really focus a lot of my studies and my free time in terms of studying on the weekends. I only had really Monday to Thursday to study if I wanted to. And it felt like such a crunch time. I couldn't get a lot done. And just because I missed home. So like I just wanted to go home. Like that was my priority, I'd say. And then the second one is definitely figuring out what to do on your own, because no one is really gonna handhold you anymore. Especially in high school, if you're always in the same class, like the same homeroom with the same group of students and the same teacher that you saw for 4 years, it's like they saw your development and they want you to do great things. But when you get into university, you don't know any of your classmates, right? There's like 700 students in our first
Even
year.
more. Yeah.
Probably, right? Probably
Yeah.
more. You don't know who your profs are. It's not that personalized.
Yeah.
And I think that was another difficult thing for me to stay productive, was that I didn't really know how to study. I didn't really know how to balance all these things, especially being in a new environment. And it was so hard being independent and trying to figure things out on my own, and like not having your parents do things for you anymore, like not having them cook for you, do laundry for you, like all of those things, you have to do them yourself. So I think that was the biggest shift for me.
Yeah. I think it's like the tsunami of like the to-do list comes at you really quick. Food, laundry, cleaning, everything comes at you really fast, and it's not like you can really prep for it, right? Maybe like in your household, you divvy up chores to some extent, but in the end, you're still living with your parents because they end up doing a lot of the work anyways. And if you had the opportunity to actually be more responsible for your stuff, it might feel a little bad at first, but in the end, it will help you, I think, a lot. For me, I think it's just the free time. I think it's like the extreme free time on my end that was like really, really difficult to manage, because as I got on in university, I did a lot better because I realized I needed like extracurriculars. I needed to do something beyond school, because if your whole existence is like, I need to make sure I just eat, do my laundry, which is not like every day either. So it's like eat and do school. It becomes very like, I have all hours of the day to do it. It's just like not a great look. And it was just really hard, I think, coming from an environment where your parents, like they really, really drill it into you. Like, now you have to study. Now you have to do this. Now you have to do that. And like you, for the first time, are like, well, now I have a choice to make. What kind of choice do I want to make? And then I think it gets a little bit about me. It's like I have decision paralysis. So then I'm like, what do I do first? And I realized I hadn't built in the muscle of like, I need a little bit of structure for myself. Not that I want to like nag at myself or anything. But I just need like a little bit of structure to my life. Or else it just turns into like a spiral of like, what do I do today? I can't study all hours a day, but that's not productive either. So and you end up like just wasting a lot of time, and like you end up being like, I have all the time in the world. Or like, this is where I also saw myself and like some other people do, is like they rebel because they were in such a strict schedule in high school, where it's like you come back home, you eat for half an hour, and then I'm gonna take you to soccer, badminton, piano practice, okay, and then you're gonna come
and they're gonna sleep for 9 hours.
Yes. And then you're going to come back, eat dinner for 20 minutes, and then get back Like that level of extremeness is quite insane. And like, I feel like some people actually, when they went to university, they kind of just flipped the switch and just was like, I'm drinking every night. Like, people that start partying since Wednesday. And it's very, very interesting, I find, because this new sense of freedom, for me, it was just like, I didn't know what to do. And then for some people, it's like, oh, I can do anything. If I can do anything, I'm gonna rebel and like I'm gonna do everything that I wasn't allowed to do.
I think a lot of people felt that there was like not a lot of consequences if you don't do those things because your parents weren't physically there to baby you, to be like, are you going to school? Are you going to class? Are you eating? Are you exercising? It's like they weren't there to handhold you. But then it's like it's a huge shift in independence where like you see in first year where like people go off the rails. They're like, my parents are here. I'm not living at home. I could do whatever I want. And there's no consequence. Well, they think there's no consequences to that because it's like, I'm just having fun. Like, I never got to do that in high school, so I'm just going ham. I'm just gonna go in.
Yeah. And I've seen this like with eating too, where it's like my mom would never let me eat pizza every night. Well, guess what? In university, you can do that. You can let me do it. Then you run into issues like freshman 15 or like people getting really, really sick. I feel like that's leads to some level of unproductivity, right? Where you have a little bit too much freedom, and because you're almost like let out like a loose animal, you end up doing very crazy things. So I want to ask you, obviously there are consequences in life. And you can't
No, don't say that.
Oh my god. Okay, so there are consequences in life, and at some point you're gonna realize what you're doing is a little bit unproductive or very unproductive. What was your tipping point of being like, maybe this is not sustainable anymore? Maybe I should make a change.
Yeah, I think my tipping point was pretty profound just because in my first semester, actually, specifically, my grades were so bad to the point that I think I got an email from the dean personally or some academic advisor that was just for me, I'm pretty sure, because they're like, your academic standing is poor. If you continue down this route, I'm actually going to be kicked out of the program and I definitely won't come back. And so I remember when I got that email, it was like halfway through the semester or maybe a little more than that. And we were in the student center. I read the email after eating dinner. And the first thing I did was I called Neeqs. And I remember at that point, like we weren't like super close. Like we knew each other and like we talked, but we weren't like obviously our friendship now. So I called her and I bawled my eyes out to her. And imagine this stranger bawling her eyes out. And the students
in front of a pizza.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And like kind of digging deeper into that, it's like one of the reasons why my grades were so bad that I got that email was just because I had such a hard time balancing everything. Like I said, like I prioritized sleep and social a lot more than studies. I barely studied. I just did it to get by, like just to get a passing grade. Like I didn't really care to do well. And it got so bad to the point where during one of our accounting midterms halfway through the semester, oh my goodness, let's pretend like the exam was supposed to be at 1 o'clock, but I thought it started at 1:30. So at like 1:10, I started walking to my exam and everything. And then that's when I realized I was like, I made a mistake. There's no one else walking to any buildings at this time because usually like 10 to 20 minutes before the exam, it's like a lot of people are walking down the same right? But I saw nobody. And that's when I knew I like fucked up so big. I was 30 minutes late to my exam. I walk into my scheduled room and they're like, sorry, this room is full. So I had to do the walk of shame out of that room into a different room that actually was Neeqs' room. And I opened the door, I was like, creak. Everyone in the back turned to me and I was like, fuck, like this is it. I'm not gonna pass. And yeah, I think that I realized was the tipping point for me because I was like, I never want to show up 30 minutes late to an exam, have everyone in the back room stare at me and be like, what the fuck is this girl doing showing up 30 minutes late to a freaking accounting exam where like most people don't even finish in time. And yeah, I was like, if I continue down this route, I'm gonna get kicked out and for the rest of my life I'm gonna prioritize sleep and social because I'm not gonna be studying anymore regardless.
Because you won't be in school.
I won't
Yeah.
be in school. And I won't even get into like any professional school later on because who would want me?
Oh my God. Thank you for sharing that story. From my perspective, yeah, I always thought you had it all together. I think maybe just like the illusion of myself. I was like, oh, everybody goes back home and like they get stellar grades. I thank you for being vulnerable because I feel like it lit both of our stuff.
Yeah.
Again, when we were talking about like a couple episodes before, it's like, what do you look for in a friend, or like what kind of friend do you want to be? Then I realized I was like, it kind of lit something in between us to be like, we're never gonna be at this position ever again. I was like, we're gonna be so fucking studious. We're gonna be so like, we're gonna be the best influence on each other. So mine wasn't that bad.
She was a lot better than me, to be honest. You were a lot more studious.
I didn't think I was. That's the thing. I was like getting by, but I started seeing letters that I've never seen in my life. Okay. Not to be like, oh, I was a stellar A+ student, but I was like getting like D's and C's. And
I was like, what is this?
And I just remembered like going to exams and being like, me guessing will get me a better result than me trying to figure out what's going on in the exam. And then I hated it so much. I hated going and waiting for my exam results too. I was so anxious looking at my grades. Everybody was just like, our grades are out. Did not want to look at them. And I remember it made me so sick. So I was like, I could keep going, live my life. And then every couple of days, I have like this gut wrenching, I'm gonna throw up, I'm gonna pass out level of stress.
Yeah.
Because I can't handle either going into the exam or I can't handle after the exam. And I thought that was a very pivotal moment because I was like, something's got to change. Either I keep going and keep getting really physically sick, or I just make sure I have a healthy amount of stress every single day to get me going. And then I can basically overcome.
Especially not having like, if you're really close with your family in high school, or like not having your close high school friends with you that like you went through a good chunk of your life with, it's like no one is really there from home to support you. It definitely felt like I was lost, and I'm sure many of you felt you were lost as well if you're in the same boat.
PTSD right now. I just remember me sitting there all alone in my freaking bedroom, my one bedroom, my one bed, one desk, one chair, and I was sitting there being like. And then being so scared. Yeah, not a great look, honestly. Yeah. But I want to talk about something.
Yeah.
You know? Meanwhile, I was crying in the bathroom.
People have it much worse. Like, if you think your situation is bad, someone out there is like feeling what you're feeling, but worse.
Yeah.
So, what are some other things that you might have seen, that you might have heard, that other people were doing in terms of their studying, but it was actually not efficient or not effective studying? It was actually pretty toxic study habits.
Yeah, I think part of it is you don't really know what everybody is doing. Sometimes people talk about studying in a very strange way. Okay, let's talk about toxic productivity. Yeah, basically there are a lot of toxic study habits. You would think that people are being truthful about their studying, but sometimes what they do and what they say is very different. And I don't know why we have to like use it as a badge of honor, but like people being like, oh, I studied 12 hours at a library. How long did you study for? Oh, I pulled an all-nighter last night and that's how I studied. Oh, I went to X library and I didn't see the light of day for 72 hours. Oh, and I also didn't shower for 50 days because I was so busy. That does not help in many ways. It's almost like you're lying, and then also, what on earth are you doing? That you couldn't shower and then you couldn't sleep. What is actually happening? We always go, oh yeah, and then he's gonna get straight A's. We never look towards the people that actually have more of like a balance. It's almost like we're envious of them, or we think they're geniuses. We think that these people that stay in the library for X amount of hours are like the best people to look up to.
It's almost like a badge that you can earn. Badge number 1. Pull an all-nighter. Oh, you got it? Have you gotten it? Have you done it? Oh, you haven't done it? You wouldn't understand it. oh, you're gonna study for 12 hours straight? Like, I did it, and like, I got a straight A. And it's almost like people start equating to the longer in terms of hours you study will get you better grades. And that is not the case at all. It's not really about how long you study for or how long you stay at the library for. It's
Nope.
not. Yeah, it's more about like,
No.
are you efficient with your studying? Like, you could stay at the library for 12 hours, no one's stopping you, but it's like, oh, what are you doing in the 12 hours? Are you hanging out with your friends there? Is it more of like a social time for you? Or like,
I know.
are you eating for like 6 hours? You know what I mean? Now looking back at it, now that we finished and graduated, it's like I never want to be in that boat again where like I have to pull an all-nighter, because then it just shows that like I'm unproductive with my time and I have poor time management to not be able to study and get everything done like the week before, you know, like it's the last resort that I'm going to.
Oh my God, yes. I think we just need to stop glorifying. Like, we need to stop being like, this is the only way. Because guess what? Like anything in their life, there's a hidden cost to it. Obviously, there's like the cost of how do you sustain this? If you haven't taken care of yourself, I've seen in my time is like the abuse of like energy drinks,
Yeah.
caffeine pills. If you have to study 12 hours straight, there's no way you are operating at the same level of energy. Or like if you're pulling all nighters like several nights in a row, there's no way you can be like, I can always keep this. You're gonna have to introduce other things into your life, like coffee, caffeine pills, energy drinks, even other things that we won't mention, but you know, other drugs to like sustain that lifestyle. It really catches up to you really fast. Because my question always is like, when does it stop?
It's almost like a snowball effect we talked about in previous ones. It's like when you start something, it's gonna be very hard for you to stop it just because it like keeps going and keeps magnifying. So if you're pulling an all-nighter, for example, on Monday, and then you're up until like, let's say like the early morning hours of the next day. Okay, well, you lost your sleep. Then you're going to be tired. Then you're going to want to eat poorly. You're not going to work out. And you're going to probably neglect your personal hygiene. Like, you're not going to want to shower. Neek said, there's a hidden cost to it. Are you satisfied with the amount of work you pulled in for your all-nighter? Because, like, you're going to be missing out on so many more positive things the next day, right? Like, you're going to be so tired to do everything else. But yeah, we need to stop glorifying people who, like, freaking down, like, 12 monsters or 12 Red Bulls in a night just because they're like, I need to stay up for 12 hours to finish this assignment.
Oh, I know. And I think to add to that, there's a lot of people that like actually just take too much on. So there's one aspect of like there's people that like study a lot at the library and stuff, and then there's like another whole situation where like people actually just take on way too many clubs, way too many leadership positions. They just do so much, and I call them clout chasers. And I feel like if you really don't know your limit of like, okay, XYZ, if I do all three, I'm gonna burn out very fast. Yes, it would be nice to do all three, but doing all three very poorly, I think, is just very interesting. Sometimes people value the quantity more than the quality of work and the quality of life. I think I've seen like really bad stresses come out of stuff like that. Again, not showering, not eating properly. This one I find very interesting. Losing your hair because you're so stressed out. Like that was a very interesting concept to me because in second year, I got so stressed out that like I could feel my hair thinning out a little bit. I remember we had this month where I think 5 weeks straight, every single weekend I had a midterm.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was on like survival mode of being like, we're going to take it one day at a time, one exam at a time. And like, it's a marathon because I need to keep going until I go to the end. And I've seen people take on like way too many clubs and they get so stressed out because they can't manage the inconsistent timings of everything. And they were trying to do like a side job. And then they're trying to do like 4 different clubs and like they're trying to do 10 leadership things. And then they end up not sleeping. And I feel like when you're young, you think you're like actually invincible. You're like, I got this. Nothing can bring me down. But I asked, when does it stop? Are you going to magically get amazing work-life balance or whatever when you're working? Like, are you going to get amazing grasp on life when you're like 30? Life it's going to just keep snowballing. That's what I think.
I think in first year, it's like, It's really hard, I understand, just because you're in a new environment and there's like so many things you can do. There's so many different clubs you can join, right? There's so many potential work opportunities or co-op opportunities that you can do. So I totally get how it's like we were all in first year. We know that you want to fluff up your resume and you need like stuff to add to your resume. You need to make sure that like you definitely don't take too much on. You're not one of those clout chasers to be like, I am the CEO, I'm the co-founder of 4 clubs and I'm working a part-time job. Oh, I'm also getting straight A's. Well, like that doesn't last forever. You know what I mean? Like you can't continue to be VP of the club for like all 4 years. You know what I mean? It's like you need to start thinking about like what's feasible. Am I actually liking what I'm doing?
Yeah. Maybe like if you are a club owner and stuff, like if you are going to hire a VP or something of your club, or if you're looking for a group mate, right? I know a couple episodes we did, but maybe we didn't even add this, but like understanding how people handle stress and how people manage their time is so important, because then you can figure out, it's like, oh, you got 15 other things to do. There's no way you're going to prioritize my thing, because everybody is going to ask for your time, right? We all got 24 hours in a day. You can't do everything. Might as well do something well than bad.
And you might as well do something you like on top of that.
Yes.
Right?
Oh my God.
Don't do it just to clout chase and just to add like a title on your resume. Do it because you actually like it and you actually care about it.
That's another thing too. You're going to bump it off your resume the minute you start working, because all of your clubs and stuff don't matter.
They matter in like your first job out of university. It's like, because everyone knows when you hire a new grad, it's like you might have like 2-3 internships and like a lot of clubs, but then it's like your second and third job, like it's gonna get bumped off your resume for sure.
So fast. Yeah, and no one even looks at it at that point, right? They care about what you did at your actual job. So if you're gonna do all these clubs and stuff, and if you're gonna put in so much effort into clout chasing, make sure you're clout chasing for the right things.
Yeah.
You know, because if it's gonna be bumped off in 1 or 2 years, was it worth it? Right?
We hope it was, though.
We've hit rock bottom. We've seen it all.
We've seen it all.
We've seen the good, the bad. We've seen it all. Thinky libraries, very strange smells.
We've seen eye bags, lots of dark eye bags.
A lot of empty cans of various liquids. My question is, what is one thing, like in that moment, that led you out of your productivity slump? How did you get back on track?
Yeah, I think at that moment was, to your point, I took it day by day. I need to start planning out everything I have in my life into an agenda. And not just school, but like if I was working, if I had an internship, like any club meetings or like any specific dates that's like really important, I had to put into my calendar. Because then it's like I had on my wall like all 4 months, because that was like one semester. And then when I was looking at my wall, I was like, okay, I know that like if I want to balance the 3 S-triad, then it's like I can't do it on this weekend, because like I already knew 2 weeks in advance that like I had an exam that day or I had a assignment due that day. So definitely like that's definitely something I put into place right away, and it really, really helped me kind of map out my timing better and really be more productive.
I definitely agree with an agenda and understanding when you can really do things and when can you not. I think my big thing was I had just too much time. Well, I needed a space where I just needed to focus in on something. Just like really, really focus. And I needed to have a space because like I'm an only child. So when I went home, it was always silent and I could just do my homework. And there was no distractions, no nothing. And I realized I didn't have that. So I basically found the best thing that ever happened, which was a silent study room. This thing was the best thing ever, because if anybody saw me, they couldn't say anything to me.
Yeah.
You know, I love to chat. So if anybody came up to me, I remember one of my friends, he came into the room and he was trying to mouth things at me. And I was like, we're in a silent
It's like miming.
Like,
no.
Yes. He was like trying to mime or something to me. And I was like, bro, I can't talk to you. like, we need to like chat. And I'm like, we can't chat because I'm working. And also we're in a study room. So rather than, because me being me, like, I love to chat. So I was like, this is perfect. Because someone comes in, they physically can't talk to me. And then if I hadn't talked to anybody, and also there's the pressure of everybody working right beside me, you usually have something due that day.
Yeah.
Or like you're actually taking a quiz or something, and that's why people go to these places. Stellar. I was like, you can't talk? Perfect.
Yeah.
Because I can't talk? Perfect. If you don't get it done by in the next 2 hours, it looks like something's gonna explode. Perfect. Because I'm gonna sit here and do my work. And I saw my grade like flip. Like it went so high. And then I was like, I think I understand somewhat of a grasp. But like if I just keep up with also my roommate was kind of being kind of weird. So I was like, oh, I actually can't go anywhere but the silent study room. So I was like, this is another like constraints. It's like I can't go home because she's probably gonna Skype her boyfriend. So I was like, okay, perfect. So if I eat dinner, go study for 5 hours, and then it closes at 9, I have to go home and sleep. And then I do it all over again. Best grades of my life.
It's so funny that you brought up the silent study part of the library, just because I know I also use the silent study rooms a lot. And I remember specifically in the libraries, like most of the time I'd say like people are actually silent and like they're actually very respectful of other people. But other times I remember like people would be talking or there's like whispers, but then it's like people would be passive aggressive with like looking and like staring at them. And I even remember there was like a number that you could text where it's like if you notice people are being too loud in the silent part of the library, you could actually text this number, and then a librarian would actually come and be like looking at you and would actually talk to you. But yeah, that's so funny because I'm like, people are actually pretty passive aggressive when it comes to that. Like they actually respect other people's like independence and like quietness of that.
Yeah, which is great because then it's like it reinforces everybody because everybody needs something done, right?
So I guess we talked a lot about like our first year and how it was very
turbulent, tumultuous.
Beyond rock bottom. Like there's rock bottom and then there's Cor who went below rock bottom. Then there's Neeqs who like kind of surfaced rock bottom. She wasn't quite there yet. I think she was a little
I always
better.
put my leg in.
Yeah, she dipped her toes in. And then she's like, nah, it's not for me. So if you were to do like first year again, let's say, or like looking back at first year, or even our listeners who might be in first year college or university, what advice would you give them or yourself back in first year?
I don't know why. All right. I'll let performance studying. I have performed the act of 12 hours studying in a library. I shall receive an A+. Nope. Also, maybe I had this expectation in me. I was like, I just really want to be that girl with the beautiful extreme color coding system.
With the colorful notes and the highlighter and like you underlining your title and highlighting them. Oh, I know.
Beautiful cursing. And I knew this one girl who did it. And I was like, I just want to be you. Then I realized.
You take more time like making your notes beautiful than you do actually taking in your notes.
And you know what? That's another thing too. Like I was so hung up on the aesthetics and the act. You know, if someone actually looked at my notes, I would want them to be like, wow, this is beautiful. That's not the point of notes.
That's not the point.
It's not the point of studying.
Nope.
That's literally not it. I think one of the bigger things is that, like, why did I not look up scientifically proven methods of study?
Yeah.
I'm actually such a ding dong because now I'm like looking up things. And there's things like active recall. And I realized I was already doing that in high school. And I was a really messy person when I studied. I really like being tactile. I love taking a piece of paper, scribbling things, folding it 10 times, making funny acronyms. So like I love doing that. And it worked so well. And I love doing little stories. I love making myself laugh while I study, right? Because like those were always the best exams because I had so much fun recalling some like really explicit like acronym that makes me remember all that stuff. I realized later on, like when I was actually studying, like at home and like at a silent place, like I can be very animated and I can fold things a lot easier rather than this perfect extreme color coding system that wouldn't have never worked for me.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I put so much pressure on myself to do that.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. A lot of people study just to put on a performance, right? Especially at a library when you see people who are like, I see other people studying. I'm just going to stare at my screen and then reread the same thing over and over because that's what other people are doing. But that's such a good point because it's like everyone studies differently, right? Everyone remembers things differently. Like you said, you used acronyms, like explicit and funny acronyms that like it's funny, but it works, right? And at the end of the day, if it works, like that's all that matters for you. I think for me, that is something I also wish I did was the amount of times I looked up on YouTube like study methods after university compared to what I did during university is crazy. Like I definitely wish I started doing that back in first year where it's like testing out different study methods and everything. But the thing is actually because I'm starting school again in September, yeah, I think even now it's like I already know some techniques that I want to try out for watching YouTube after university. But now that I'm going back anyways, me and my ding dong brain will definitely try out those study methods.
If something's not working for you, change it up,
Yeah.
girl. Change it up fast. Also, make sure like you are taking a step back
Yeah.
and not getting overwhelmed yet, but like just taking a step back and being like, okay, is this the most productive thing ever
Right.
that I'm doing?
Yeah.
Could there be a better way to do this?
Yeah.
Am I actually learning anything?
Yeah.
Like after your 12-hour study session, it's like, did I learn anything?
Yeah.
No. Okay, so why don't we do 6 hours?
Yeah.
You know, and try to be more efficient.
Yeah.
And let's think about how we can get good grades.
Yeah. You know what would be interesting is if like we did another episode on like the different study methods that we actually learned after university that we want to try out.
Yes. Yeah. I think for you maybe once you start going to school, we can like do like different study methods that actually work and you can give us maybe like an update of like what you're implementing and basically how you do it with online school.
Right, yeah.
It is very fascinating these days.
Yeah. I think another thing that I wish I did was like you said, it's like don't fall into the performance studying and like if I see people like staying 12 hours at the library because then I affiliated longer hours with like getting better grades. And so it's like I wish I knew that that wasn't the case and I could actually take breaks. Start reflecting on like which hours do I study best. If I see people at the library at like 9 p.m., I'm not a night person. I want to go to sleep when it's 9 p.m. So like it's not really helpful that like I stay at the library until 9 p.m. to study because I'm not going to remember anything, right? Really doing some self-reflection and seeing what are my peak hours. Like when do I feel really like slumped and I want to go to bed.
Mm-hmm. As much as you think like, oh, that will never apply anywhere else, applies elsewhere too.
It does.
Because I feel like at work, you would actually start realizing you have bursts of energy certain ways and like you can actually work around your time to make sure that you're capitalizing on those
100%
on those energy bursts.
Yeah.
And when you actually do the best work.
Exactly.
So if you are figuring it out and you feel like you can't like find that one thing.
Yeah.
It just takes a little bit of time. But remember, bad grades are recoverable. Every test you take is not the end of the world.
I remember in university or college, people were like, pain is temporary, but GPA is forever. But it's like, okay, it's kind of true to a certain extent. But then maybe we'll talk about this another time. But it's like, your identity isn't just your GPA.
Yes. Let's say this one more time for the people in the back.
So that's something I want to make sure our listeners also remember, especially if you might be in university or college now. Don't overstress it, you know? Don't beat yourself up if you don't get straight A's and everything. Because we understand it's difficult and you're figuring it out. As long as you're continuously trying and doing your best, that's all you can ask for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's like a lot of perfectionism and all that because like school does make you want to become perfect.
Yeah.
Because there's always a perfect score.
Yeah.
To get. Know that like if you want to do something with your grades too.
Yeah.
Right? Like you knew you want to go to grad school. What grades do you need to go into grad school?
Exactly.
if it only was a 60 and you're trying to do something like hell-bent on
Yeah.
like a certain grade, and it makes no sense when they're going to accept people anyways regardless of 60 or 70. Just make sure you know what kind of expectations you put on yourself and if they are aligned with like your
Yeah.
grad school's expectations, because there's no
Yeah.
point on stressing yourself to oblivion.
I love how we always go back to expectations. It's like, where do they come from?
Oh my god.
Who's setting
Where
them?
did that come from?
Right?
So we wish you nothing but luck and a good, productive semester. You have just been listening to the Starting Out podcast. If you liked today's episode, please make sure to rate and like the show. Also, leave us a review. It helps us a lot. To never miss an episode, please subscribe and turn on notifications. We love to hear from you. So if you want to chat with us, tweet us at StartingOutPod. Links are in the description. As always, we are so excited for you to start out on your journey, all while listening to ours. See you in the next one.